All right, everyone's trickling in here, so I'll just slowly get started. Thank you for joining us for Rented versus Owned Audiences, the hidden risk behind your marketing strategy. My name's Scott from Marketer Hire, and I'm happy to be joined today by Carlos and Michaela, who I'll introduce in a moment. This is actually the third and final session of our three-part series called Emails That Convert. The goal of the series is to help you accelerate your growth via the email channel by highlighting some of the top growth marketing and email marketing tactics that successful email marketing programs are using today. So to bring you the best content and advice, we partnered with GetResponse, the leading email marketing platform since 1998. The GetResponse team brings lots of data-backed insights and powerful insights based on hundreds of thousands of customers. And Carlos, I'd love to kind of hand it off to you. Would you mind introducing yourself again to our audience?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, hey, once again, how are you? I'm Carlos Gill. I'm the brand evangelist for GetResponse here in the US. For those of you that have joined us for part 1 and 2, welcome back. For those of you that are just tuning in for the first time, just want to tell you very quickly about GetResponse. Like Scott mentioned, we've been around since the late 90s. We are one of the leading email marketing service providers in the entire world. And we have partnered with Marketer Hire to teach marketers, whether you're an email marketer or in today's case, a social media marketer. We've partnered with Marketer Hire to teach the industry on how to get the most out of not only GetResponse, but how to level up your email marketing in 2025. And I'm really excited about today's session because we're working with Michaela Alexis. Michaela and I have actually done multiple webinars with GetResponse. I'm really excited. She is an expert at all things LinkedIn. So today we are going to teach you strategies on how you can leverage LinkedIn in combination with email. All right. So first I want to go through what we've covered in session 1, because I really feel that it's important that we just touch on at a very high level some of the most critical details that you need to understand in terms of where the current is going with email marketing. So the great thing about working with GetResponse is that GetResponse has all of this data, and annually GetResponse publishes its benchmark report. For last year, GetResponse analyzed over 5 billion emails sent through the GetResponse platform, with over 1 billion emails sent in the United States alone. Now, what the data showed us is that the average email open rate in the United States is just over 32%. Why is this important, and why should you care as a business who's hopefully using email? Well, it's very simple. Social media reach, social media opens dwarf by comparison to email marketing. You see some of the numbers there in front of you compared to Instagram, which is 0.67%, under 1%, Facebook, which is even smaller by comparison than TikTok, which has slightly higher 4 to 6% open rates or impression rates. That's really small by comparison to email. Next is email outperforms social. Why? Because there's no algorithm. You have direct access. You have full control. There's no middleman. So if you have an email list, even if it's 500 people, you have the ability to go directly to those 500 subscribers without having to rely on the algorithms to serve up your content to them. And then best send times are Tuesdays or Thursdays. And this was a big eye opener. I know not only to myself, but to a lot of other folks that tuned into session 1. The best times to send are actually between 3 to 5 a.m. as well as 5 to 6 p.m. Next slide. Now, session 1 was all about email marketing stats, how you can be prepared, how you can leverage this data. Session 2 was all about automation. So automation tactics to help you, as you see there on the screen, print more money. In order for you to have a email marketing strategy that hits on all cylinders, you need to first of all have a strategy. You can't just think about email marketing as anytime you feel like sending out an email, you're going to just send out to your list. It doesn't work like that. You need to use automation tools. And in session 2, Michael Barber and I, we went deep into GetResponse and the automation tools that we offer, starting with lead magnets. And much of what Michaela and I are going to talk about today, how you use LinkedIn in combination with email marketing, is going to revolve around having automation workflows. So it starts with your lead magnet, whether it's an ebook, whether it's a 10-step guide, whether it's even just a newsletter. You need to have a hook that gets people from social media over into email, lead magnet being that hook. Once you hook someone, then you need to have a welcome email set up, or it can be a welcome email series. Then you have to nurture that audience, meaning you have to stay on their radar. You have to keep that audience warm. And then once you've hooked, welcomed, and you keep the audience warm, then you serve them with an offer. Autoresponders in combination with behavioral triggers or segments are going to be what helps you send emails consistently 365, 24/7 while you're sleeping. And then smart segmentation, meaning you're taking the people that are opening, they're engaging, they're clicking, you're creating segments around them. That's going to be what ensures that you're able to scale without burning out. And it's also going to ensure that you're hitting the right audience at the right times. Next slide. Now, today we're going to talk about this whole theory of owned versus rented audiences. And I want to first start off by saying that I have spent the majority of my career working in social media marketing. Just like Michaela, who's going to talk about herself and her background in just a moment, I've spent the majority of my career working in social media marketing. I've written books on the topic. I have spoken all over the world about social media marketing. And it wasn't until about a year ago that I came to work for GetResponse that the light bulb really went off. And I realized I, as a career social media marketer, have been sleeping on email marketing this entire time. I wish that I started a newsletter years ago. I wish that I started collecting more data years ago. I wish I started saying more emails years ago, and I probably would have transitioned the majority of my time from focusing on social media and how to write content, how to make videos over into email marketing. And, I've kind of come up with this whole theory of own versus rented because social media is where you're renting your audience, it's where you're running attention, emails where you own it. But as we go much deeper and we talk today about how to use LinkedIn in combination with email, it's not so much owned versus rented as it is owned and rented. So how can you use owned channels in combination with rented? We're going to talk about why relying on social is risky, why email continues to be more powerful than social. But then we're going to go deep into how to convert your LinkedIn audience into subscribers. So how can you use the tools that LinkedIn has? Best practices for LinkedIn, for creators, for freelancers. I know Michaela has a lot to cover on there. And then what to send to someone after they opt into your list. And, finally, what are things that you can do right now to own your audience and own your revenue? Next slide, please. Now, before we go ahead and jump into it, I want to bring Michaela onto here so she can introduce herself. Once again, Michaela is amazing. I've had an opportunity to work with her at GetResponse, but I've also have followed her work across LinkedIn throughout the years. And the reason why I love tag teaming with Michaela is that she's no fluff, no BS. She's going to say it how it is. And Michaela, I'm so excited to collaborate with you once again.
Am I on mute? Did I mute myself? No, I didn't. Okay, perfect.
I can hear you.
I'm super excited to be here. I love geeking out. Those are some really interesting stats about email marketing. And it's so interesting to me because I have a little bit of a different process when it comes to marketing, even using email marketing or newsletters, I should say. But it's so interesting seeing that 2 to 5 a.m. especially. I live by testing everything because even when it comes to LinkedIn and looking at the times, you just never know until you actually test it. What time is best to post. But anyways, my name is Michaela, and as you can already tell, I am a LinkedIn nerd. I love to geek out about this stuff. I started on the LinkedIn platform as a job seeker, actually, and kind of fell into personal branding. I was already a social media marketer, was creating content and strategies for companies that I worked at. And when I was laid off, I decided, hey, why don't I start doing some of this stuff for myself? And funny enough, people actually cared about my journey as a job seeker. And as a marketer, a light bulb went off where I said, oh my gosh, this is an area where I could actually grow and I could create what I like to call career insurance. And I know that those that are freelancers and entrepreneurs are going to like that term because I really believe that LinkedIn is career insurance. And it got to a point where people started asking me how I was doing what I was doing. I grew my following to over 200,000 followers on LinkedIn and was able to kind of go off on my own and train. And I started doing that in 2018. And since then have become an official LinkedIn learning instructor. Recently wrote a book on No Fear Networking. A big part of that is LinkedIn, but it's all about, for all of my socially anxious friends that are listening today, all about that and how you can network on LinkedIn. And now I just get to do what I love every single day and join you guys today and geek out more about this.
Awesome. Well, Michaela, let's jump right into it. If we can get to the next slide, please. We're talking today about own versus rented audience. And you see here the question on the screen. Let's go this next slide. Are you building on rented land? So I would imagine that if you're watching this right now, more than likely you have a social media presence of some sort, right? Like, who doesn't use social media in 2025? And look, I'll be the first one to say, no matter how much social networks drive me crazy with the limited reach, they are necessary to brand building today, right? You need to use social media, regardless of what industry you're in. So if you're in B2B, let's just say LinkedIn, B2C, combination of Instagram and TikTok, you need to use these mediums to build brand awareness, but you cannot rely on them at all. And Michaela, I just want to ask you this question here to put you on the spot, because I often like to throw it back to the creators that have big presences on platforms. If LinkedIn were to go away today, would you confidently say that you've established a plan B for your brand?
Yeah, I think that a big part of it is just kind of like you're mentioning, having different places where I have my presence. I'm also on TikTok. I'm also on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook. These are all areas that I could regrow based on the fundamental things that I've learned over time. But, some people listening might be like, why is Michaela here if we're talking about how rented land is so terrible? I agree with all of this. I've seen this happen to friends of mine where they've built up their LinkedIn following and it's disappeared overnight. So I 100% am on board with making sure that you have a plan B in mind for when and if this happens, because it does happen often.
So personally, just to share some insight with you, I started thinking more about owning data or owning, if you will, many years ago. So right around 2018 or 19, when I was really active on the speaking circuit, I think it was 2018, I was on the speaking circuit just about every single week. And I started realizing I have all these people in front of me. I have a dedicated audience in front of me. And if I'm not capturing their emails, then it's a missed opportunity, right? Like, public speaking is great. You make a living out of it. You can use it for lead generation if you provide consulting or agency services of any sort. But that being said, when that 30 or 45-minute window is over and you're off the stage and you're on to the next activity, if you didn't capture that data in front of you, it's a complete missed opportunity. So I, back then, started with capturing emails or capturing leads in a combination of ways. One, every time I get on stage, I always make my slides available. So I will often get on stage and the first thing I say is like, look, I'm about to go through a lot of information over the next hour. I'm not going to have time for Q&A. Here's my email address. And I usually have it on the slides. It's like the first thing that people see. Here's my email address. Here's my phone number. Email me or call me. And then I have magnets, if you will, or workflows in place and then capture that data. When I was doing this old school, I would just say straight up, send me an email and I'll send you an email back with my slides. My point that I'm trying to make here is that it took me about 5 or 6 years of collecting data to feel confident that, like, even though, yes, combined social media following for me is over a couple 100,000 followers, and my email count is much smaller by comparison, I also can attest that I don't know who follows me across all these social networks. Like, yes, I have an idea. Like, I know you follow me, Michaela. I know a lot of people that follow me, but could I tell you exactly all the people that follow me? No. I can say the majority of the people have opted into my email newsletter over the years are people that have seen me speak. They're people that have followed me on social media. Now they're going one step further. So again, I say this for those that are watching, so you can get in the mind frame of just taking what you already do, where you already have a presence, and start thinking of how you can incorporate your email newsletter into that. Let's go to the next slide. So social gets you seen, email gets you paid. This is more or less the rented versus owned comparison. You see right here, social media, it's rented attention, right? So you're able to use TikTok, you're able to use LinkedIn, you're able to post on these platforms, but you have no guarantees of who's going to see. But that being said, even if it's a very small number, these social networks do help you get discovered. The key, though, is to not rely on these mediums to help you get discovered. The key is to turn these rented audiences into own relationships. So let's say you are consistently posting on LinkedIn, you've built up a following. The people that are the most engaged are the ones that you should be striving to slide into their DMs to get them to sign up for your newsletter. Or periodically you host a webinar and, that webinar that you're hosting, which hopefully it's through GetResponse, you're converting those registrants over into your newsletter, right? And If you do this consistently, right, over time, it's not going to seem icky, right? It's not going to seem like you have an ulterior motive to get your followers over into your email newsletter. It's just a seamless transition. Hey, I've got this ebook. Hey, I've got this course. Hey, I've got this webinar that I'm doing. Little by little, you need to work on getting that audience to convert from following you to now subscribing to you. And you see the numbers here on the screen. Email, it's proven. It's not fluff. It's not BS. Email delivers 4 times ROI more so than social. And emails tend to convert 6 times higher than social media followers because let's face it, the keyword in social media is social. People are socializing. They're not necessarily going on the social media with the intent of being sold to. Michaela, do you have any thoughts that you want to add to that?
No, this makes sense. It's about creating a process. And I think for most people, I think we understand this, but I think where a lot of people have issues or struggles is trying to figure out how to take advantage of that rented attention and turning it into an own relationship. And it's not quite as like you get the attention on social and then you jump straight into email. So I'm really excited to talk more about what this process actually looks like for somebody like me.
Let's keep talking about the process. If we go to that next slide. So email is the most powerful owned channel. Again, you get to control the message, timing, delivery. So social media, yes, you can control timing, message delivery. What you can't control is that your message actually gets delivered. So actually, I'll go back. You control the message. You control when you send it out. Yes, you can hit send, but you can't control who sees it. Email, you know that your email is going to hopefully at least get to the inbox. Now, whether someone else opens it or not, that's TBD. You have full analytics, so you can see opens, clicks, segmentation. You can personalize messages at scale, and you're not subject to the algorithm changes. Now, Michaela, I know we're going to talk about this with your LinkedIn strategy. So you have a LinkedIn newsletter. Let's talk about that for a moment. How has the LinkedIn newsletter, which is a built-in feature within LinkedIn, how has that helped your brand?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. I was one of those people that I'm like, I can do everything through social. I'm going to like be posting content and then I'll have people come into my DMs and then I'll sell them that way. And it does work for me. However, I've always felt like there was like this hole, like there was like this piece missing from my process for those people that wanted to hear more from me, but I wasn't showing up in their feed because of the algorithm changes. They decide to favor video or whatever. And so my newsletter for me, it kind of started off as just like an experiment. I love to do long form pieces of content. And then I realized over time that it became like a clubhouse. So that was an area where people were actually able to put up their hand and say, no, I want to hear more from you. And it allowed me to go a little bit deeper on some of the topics that I was covering on LinkedIn. So I always like to say like LinkedIn is like the world's largest networking event. I'm sure I've said that a million times, Carlos, but your content is essentially your handshake. And then I've been thinking about my newsletter or your email list is essentially like your booth. Like that's where you're sending people back to. And if you don't have anywhere to send people back to, you're shaking a lot of hands, but you're just kind of going through that process and you're not leading people to the next step. So this is a really great space to share more about what you do. So this has been like the missing piece of the puzzle. And the biggest thing has been the algorithm changes. As somebody that has a very big following on LinkedIn, I can tell you that the algorithm has gone like this over the years. And I got sick of that. Who wants to like constantly be doing this with the algorithm? Oh, today I've got to change and I've got to do all video. No more video. We got to do all audio. Like it is impossible as an entrepreneur. There's freelancers that are on this call to keep up with whatever the algorithm wants that day. And so I think out of everything, just not being subject to the algorithm changes and being able to create and deliver content to the people that want it is by far the most powerful thing about email and newsletters in general.
I was going to say, kind of touching on the algorithm, right? If there's one thing that I don't even want to say frustrates me because it's all about playing the game by the house rules, right? But if there's one thing that I feel is kind of hokey is having to almost game the system, meaning you have to frame your content in a certain way to then hook people's attention, to then get them to, want to scroll down the feed.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a constant bait and switch, right? Like I just want you to see that I exist. So I have to write this post in a certain format. And look, it's exhausting, folks. I'm sure you would agree also, Michaela. It's exhausting to keep up. It's exhausting to build an audience. It's exhausting as hell to frame your content in a certain way just to get a small fraction of people's time and attention, which is, again, why we're having this conversation, right? Why we're talking about the importance of owning your data. Now, don't get me wrong. When you send out an email, yeah, it's important that your content is written in a way that's going to bring value to someone, right? But that being said, you at least are able to control that narrative. You don't have to gamify the system for your email to look a certain way just to get people to see it.
Yeah, and let's be honest, most of us that are in marketing, we're entrepreneurs, freelancers, we do this because we don't like to follow rules. And so being in a position where it's like whatever you create is subject to these like hard and fast rules on LinkedIn or whatever platform you're on, it sucks the fun out of it, doesn't it? So this
100%.
is such a great way to be able to maintain your voice, maintain your freedom and your control over the content that you want to create, that you know people actually want to consume because they expect it from you, without relying on, playing by the rules.
Well, we're going to keep it moving. I just wanted to, while we transition to the next slide, I just want to say if anyone has any questions, any commentary, make sure that you get it into the chat. I'll tee us off here and then feel free to swoop in. So LinkedIn and email is the power combo. So the game here is use LinkedIn to be seen. So if you are, for example, an expert in your field, post as much as you possibly can. Keep doing what you're doing. Do more of it. But use email, stay remembered. And Michaela, you mentioned something just now, being the clubhouse, right? Email's the clubhouse. I often say that email's the VIP section. And I love these analogies because basically what you're saying is exclusivity, right?
Yes.
You go to a clubhouse at, let's say, a golf course, and it's an exclusive feel, right? You go to the VIP section at a nightclub, it's exclusive. So maybe kind of just speak to this a little bit more, Michaela, about this power combo of LinkedIn and email, how they can work together.
Yeah, I don't want to downplay the power of LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the world's largest networking event. There's over 1 billion users on the platform. I like to say that, anywhere that you are on LinkedIn, you could be rubbing shoulders with the CEO of a major corporation. You could be, back to back with your next great client. Everybody that you could possibly want to talk to is all hanging out right there. So it really is your visibility machine. It is the spark that starts a relationship. Email is obviously a revenue engine. It's where trust is built and where conversions actually happen. But like I mentioned before, the flow isn't this post and subscribe. LinkedIn, especially, let me talk a little bit about the culture of LinkedIn. LinkedIn is where everybody that you could want to talk to is hanging out, but they're also really, really busy. Okay. It's a different platform. We're not kind of like consuming it passively like we would be with like TikTok. We're not sitting in bed kind of scrolling, most of us are scrolling through LinkedIn late at night. It's probably like the background noise during our workday, right? Or, we're scrolling really quickly before our next Zoom call. So I always like to kind of keep that in mind anytime I'm creating content or I'm creating a strategy for LinkedIn. Who am I talking to? What else are they doing at the time when I'm trying to speak to them, right? So if you are going on LinkedIn strictly to sell, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's like going to a networking event and just handing out business cards. You might get one or two, but it's not a great strategy. Where it really, like, the magic happens is that you create your content on LinkedIn, which is your handshake. You lead people hopefully back to their your profile. People that are on LinkedIn, they love hanging out there. They're on there for extended periods of time throughout the day. So if you send people back to your profile rather than trying to lead them off of the platform that they're already hanging out on, it's going to be a lot more effective. So you can go content to profile to curiosity when they see what you do and what you offer, then to subscription, then to conversion. So it's really more of like a long drawn out process. And there's lots of ways that you can do this. But I think the hidden giant in all of this is like, yes, your content is great for a handshake, but your profile. And I know that's not sexy. I know people are like, oh my God, Michaela's going to talk about profile optimization. But really and truly, if your profile is not working for you and it's not converting into email subscribers, it's not converting to webinar attendees or whatever you're selling, you need to do work. So I think that I want to get that out of the way, because a lot of people think that they can just sell directly through LinkedIn posts, and that's just not how the culture works.
I often advise marketers or coaches or anyone that's using these mediums to sell anything is don't use social media as a vehicle to sell. Like
It's
don't.
not, it's
Right.
not a
Like
great
use
strategy.
social media to build relationships. Use it to meet people. Like, let me tell you something. I've been doing this since 2008. If I could go back in time and do anything different, like real talk, I wouldn't even post content, because the posting the content to build the personal brand is so time consuming for such little ROI on the actual reach that you're going to get. You can use LinkedIn exclusively just to network. Now, don't get me wrong. In order to get people to take you seriously and want to do business with you, it helps to have a brand. It helps to post content. If you're looking to grow an email list, yes, all of that helps, but it's so time consuming. So I think what we're both trying to say is like, you have to really be strategic with how you use limited time on these mediums, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And have a process in mind. And the process can't be point A to point B. Actually think about what that, there's a lot of people that are on here that might be familiar with email marketing, right? It's like you have this touch point and then you have this touch point. What's really interesting is that when it comes to social media, people don't think that way. They don't think about touch points. It's like, I'm going to post and then I'm going to try to sell through that post and then see what happens. It's kind of like going to again, a networking event, right? You have this great conversation. They're not going to run home and join your email list. Like, oh, Carlos and I had a really great conversation. I can't wait to join the Get Response email list, right? What are they going to do? What do most of us do? We're probably going to look up that person on LinkedIn, right? So try to think of what is that process for the person that you're speaking to, and how can you follow along on that process? Don't try to reinvent it. Follow along on that process and add calls to action to kind of nudge people forward in the direction that you want them to go.
I would say, to build on that, it's never been easier than right now to come up with an idea for a funnel or for a way to get social and email to work together. I do this all the time, just, straight up, Michaela. I use ChatGPT to come up with ideas like multiple times throughout the day, right? Like I'm sitting right now on at least like a dozen ideas for different newsletters that appeal to different industries, right? And then it comes down to like the hook, right? How are you going to get people reeled in to those newsletters? So I say this because we've got, almost 100 people watching this right now. Whatever industry you are in, you can create a newsletter tailored to that industry. Your content
100%.
strategy, not to go too far off the beaten path, but your content strategy already on web, email, text if you're doing text, social email, everything combined, your omnichannel strategy should be speaking to itself, right? You should have a content strategy already. What you need to start doing is creating your email newsletter as an asset that serves your industry or your community of buyers, right? So a few years ago, I owned a sneaker resale store. I was saying this to my business partner, over the weekend. Like, I wish that we would have done a newsletter for all things sneakerheads, knowing what I know now.
Right.
So that's where now I'm passionate to share that intel with others out there. Just take the industry that you're in and create a kick-ass newsletter that serves that industry or the community of buyers that you're trying to serve.
Yeah,
and then all
of
your content that you create, which is already speaking to that audience anyways, the email newsletter becomes the funnel or the velvet rope or the what was it you said before, the clubhouse to bring people back to.
Yeah, I don't know if you've looked at mine. I have two newsletters. I have one that is it's called Love and Coffee. It's about like my career. I call it my career blog. So any sort of things that are happening to me. So that is kind of like my firm handshake. That's like my extended handshake for people, right? Like that's me talking about my values, my beliefs, my challenges. That is strictly made so that I can go into deeper topics with people beyond my posts. My posts are very light. My newsletter is more in depth on those topics. Then I also have the LinkedIn Lowdown, which is exactly what you're saying. It's like a very specific topic about LinkedIn training, LinkedIn strategies, all of that good stuff. So people have choices in terms of where they are in my funnel of actually, I really want to learn more about Michaela and what she cares about and what her values are. And then I might look at her page and then subscribe to this other one. So I have lots of different avenues because there's going to be people too on LinkedIn. I know that people are probably listening. You have, people that you worked at Pizza Hut with when you were 16 years old, right? And you went on LinkedIn and it's like they popped up in your contacts and it's like now you've been connected for the last 10 years, right? Are they going to be your ideal client? Probably not, but maybe they want to learn more about you. Maybe they want to see what you're up to. Maybe they want to learn for like different ways that they can support you. So I like to give people different types of material. So when it comes to LinkedIn newsletters, the sky's the limit. And even when it comes to email newsletters, there's different routes that you can take with this depending on where you want people to go. What I would do if I was right now, I have my LinkedIn newsletter. I've got 40,000 subscribers on there. So I like my little bubble that I have right now. If I were to expand and create an email list that lives off of LinkedIn, which I probably should do, I would probably go deeper into the topics that we're talking about. I would probably go deeper on the strategies that I'm mentioning on the LinkedIn Lowdown, where instead of saying, here's the top 10 ChatGPT prompts for LinkedIn, I would talk about, I tried this prompt on LinkedIn and here are all the results of that thing. So think about what is that next space like, because you can't just say VIP space. It's like, what makes that space VIP, right? And
So it's going to make someone go further, right?
Yeah, and I think that this whole thing, and I remember it like 10 years ago, there's this whole phase of like creating this funnel and everything was like, you give a little piece and then you give a little piece. And I think that we are too smart as consumers and we've moved past that, where people are looking for real content. They want to see that you know what you're talking about. And you do have to kind of give some of that away in order to maintain a space that truly feels like VIP. Have you noticed that switch with GetResponse?
So I have what I would say if I could give you some advice, would be you've already established a great base with your 40,000 plus on your LinkedIn newsletter, right? Like for you at this point to disrupt that and to try to create another free newsletter, it would just be competing with that same audience. I would say going one step further for you would be now creating a premium newsletter, right? So like think of like your own.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's the true VIP. Like you can go into the club, right? If you get there before midnight, you can go in for free. But if you want to be in the VIP section popping bottles, right? Like you've got to pay for that access. So like I say that because you've already built something up with the 40,000 subscribers on LinkedIn on your newsletter. Like go one step further. The one step further you would be like, your newsletter would be a premium product, right? It could be $5 a month. It doesn't need to be anything crazy. But the good thing using GetResponse is you can also do a paid newsletter, right? And like that's it.
Oh, you can? I don't think I knew that.
100% you can. Yeah.
Okay,
you
that's
can do
cool.
a paid newsletter. So all the content will be gated and the only people that be able to see are the ones that pay for it. But like that's your solution to having the Michaela Alexis LinkedIn mastermind.
Full experience. I love it. I also wanted to just mention when it comes to your newsletter, and it kind of goes to what you're already saying, is like it should be an intro, and your traditional newsletter is like your chapter 1, and it kind of like is exactly what you're talking about with having a paid version, where it's like, what's the next step above all of this, where you're not just giving, here are a few tactics and actionable tips and all that stuff, but here's like the full process of what I've done, and this is what it looks like.
I would say, look, and I know we have to keep it moving here, but like for anyone that's watching this right now, first of all, if you've ever thought about starting a daily newsletter, weekly, monthly, if you've ever thought about starting a newsletter, period, send me a message on LinkedIn. I got you. Like, I want to help you get that because I, in a year of working with GetResponse, have started paying attention to like the Morning Brews of the world and the people that have the newsletter. Like, there's a whole science behind it, right? You have a brand. It's catchy. It's very industry, very laser specific, right? It's not like a newsletter where you're trying to like hit up all these people, right? And cast a wide net. It's very industry specific. So I've even been toying behind the scenes with my own newsletter because, again, even though I work for an ESP, like I use GetResponse's channels to be able to broadcast and do things like this. But whenever I send an email to my newsletter, or I mean, my subscribers, it's not a newsletter. It's just like a one-off blast. And it's very inconsistent, right? So the things that I talk about in forums like this, right? I myself am working to actually practice what I preach, right? Have consistency, have something that's branded, have something that has a cadence, whether it's daily, weekly, every other day. So again, I think that newsletters are very quickly becoming the new wave, not just for monetization, but they're becoming the new wave for marketers, folks like us that, are looking to future proof our brand and not rely so much on social. Let's hit that next slide, Scott. We still have a lot to cover. So practical tips to build an audience on LinkedIn and convert with email. Let's keep it moving. So Michaela, this is all you. You are the LinkedIn expert. Building a brand on LinkedIn, it doesn't happen overnight. I'm a testament to that. You are as well. We've been on LinkedIn for many years. But what are, just at a very high level, what are a few things that LinkedIn users need to do right now to optimize their profile?
Yeah, I am like all about slow and steady growth. And again, this is the unsexy part. I get it, but I'm telling you, you put in the work on your LinkedIn profile, it will become a machine for your business. I've seen it happen with client after client after client. There's some things that you want to include here. You got your headline. A lot of people will just use this space to share what they do. I like using a formula called the PPP formula. You have your position, your passion, and then your purpose. The reason why I group it in threes like that is there's a copywriting rule called the magic of threes, in that our brain processes information best when it's delivered in groups of three. It also is a great way to just kind of expand on what you're already doing, which is usually position. A lot of us just have the position on there, but then also switch it so that you're not just talking about yourself. The biggest problem that I see with most of my clients is that when I look at their LinkedIn profile, it looks like a resume. It looks like something that they could literally copy and paste onto a Word doc and print it and take to a job interview. We don't want to do that, right? Your LinkedIn profile is your home. It's your career museum. It's your booth at the networking event. And imagine if you went to a booth at a networking event, instead of GetResponse, it was like the Carlos booth. And it was just a whole bunch of pictures of Carlos everywhere, just plastered all over it. Slightly terrifying, right? To go to a booth where it's just about the dude that's running the booth. The same thing is true for your LinkedIn profile. So on your profile, you should be speaking directly to the person that's visiting. So when it comes to your headline, using that last piece, especially the purpose, not, I do this, but it's helping so-and-so, empowering, speak directly to that person because they're trying to figure out in a split second whether or not you're somebody that can help them. We don't walk around trying to decide like, oh, who's this person? And I want to learn more about them and their story. We are trying to make split decisions all day long. Who can I connect with that's going to help me grow, that's going to help me get better, who's going to make me more money, that's going to introduce me to people? We're trying to think of what's in it for us, right? So you want to be really clear in your headline of what's in it for the person that's visiting. Your banner, I'm assuming that's like your cover image. I don't know if people are on this call. If anybody is using the premium version on LinkedIn, they just released, and it just came out also for company pages as well. You can have up to 5 photos. Did you know this, Carlos? 5 photos for your cover image.
I did not know that. I'm multitasking here. I'm looking at LinkedIn as we speak, just so I can follow along, make sure that like everything's on point. No, I did not know you could do multiple photos.
So you can have 5 photos. That's something that I played around with a lot. When it first came out, I had talked about my story, and then I started thinking about it. I'm like, no, what am I doing? Again, it goes back to the booth, right? If somebody's visiting my profile, they don't care about me, not yet. Not until they know that I can do something for them, that I have something to offer, that there's a reason that we should collaborate or they should reach out to me or follow me. And so I split it up into, I talked about the challenge. So struggling to be seen on LinkedIn is my first slide. If you want to go and create my profile, you can just look at my name, type it in onto LinkedIn, and you can go see exactly what I did. The next one, I can't remember the exact order of this. I did a credibility slide where I talked about how many followers I have and the companies that I worked for. It's a picture of me on stage. Your credibility piece could be how long you've been in business, right? Even if you're running is a new brand that you started, you could talk about how long you've been in X marketing or in this or in sales or whatever it is that you're doing. You could talk about that. You could also talk about clients that you've worked with. You could talk about businesses that you've worked for. There's lots of different ways to approach this, or even use quotes from your recommendations from clients, right? I also like to talk about what I do, and I simplify it as much as humanly possible so that the person that is visiting, without having to scroll down, that's my whole goal, is like most people don't have to scroll down to know exactly what I offer. Then I also talk about what you can do while your coffee's brewing. And the idea behind that is that, again, give it away. Give it away. It doesn't mean that you have to give away your entire package, but you need to show that you know what you're talking about. So I have one slide that says, while your coffee's brewing, do this on LinkedIn. And it shows basically, if I had 5 minutes, this is what I would do on LinkedIn. So even before somebody scrolls down, and you know what that does? It triggers a psychological process, which is called reciprocity. So when somebody gives you something, you have this like biological need to give them something else. In this case, what I'm trying to trigger is them to scroll down to my profile. And then I end with a call to action. Smile and get in touch. I can't remember exactly what the slide is. Smile and get in touch if you want to work together, right? So what you want that person to do next. So starting right at the very top of your profile, you should be really clear about who you are and what you offer, and not just, your service, but what is the benefit to the person that is visiting? If you're creating content, be clear. I create content on X so that they can follow and the right people can follow you. Then you're gonna go into post consistently. This is probably the hardest part. I think for most of us, posting consistently is tough. I want to be clear here. I don't think that you should be posting daily on LinkedIn. Number one, the algorithm penalizes you if you post more than once every 24 hours. And I've played around with this a little bit, and I think it's actually more like once every, 36 hours, because I have noticed different. I think that you need to find the cadence that works for you. So if you are realistically, Michaela, I can only offer, 1 hour a week. Think about how you can best use that hour, right? If you can create 2 pieces of content, great. If you can create 1, cool, do that. But figure out a cadence that works for you, just so that people can learn to expect to hear from you at a certain time. Value, story, expertise, personality. I like to mix these up. I think it's very similar. Everything that I do on LinkedIn is I'm trying to replicate what I do at networking events when I'm not feeling awkward. If I'm feeling awkward, I don't want to replicate that on LinkedIn. But if I'm having a really great conversation, what are those great conversations? Let's think about that for a second. If we're at a networking event, you know what the conversations that I love? Carlos, I've had these conversations with you. We talk a little bit about work. We talk a little bit about strategy. Then we talk a little bit about life. Then we talk a little bit about work, right? If you actually notice the natural process of conversation when you're face to face, we're not doing that. A lot of us aren't doing that online. And I want you to think about, what do people need to know in order to work with me? So sometimes I actually will say things, I will post things that if you looked at them, you would think, what does this have to do with LinkedIn training? But what I'm actually trying to do is pre-qualify my clients. Okay, so I might share something that is important to me, talking about being a working mom, talking about work-life balance, talking about being passionate and loving what you do, talking about having a dad that was an immigrant and the value of hard work and perseverance. These are all things that I value in my life. And so in order to get the types of clients that I want, I'm going to incorporate that into my content strategy. Also with, here's what you can do on LinkedIn, so that people not only know what I offer, but they know what I'm all about. Does that make sense?
No, it definitely does. And actually, I want to stop you because we have a question that's coming in.
Cool.
While you're talking about this, what if it's a company page? Does the algorithm penalize for posting daily?
I from everything I've heard, if it's more than once every 24 hours, then it does. that's something that I've seen for myself, but I've seen it, even if I don't do it exactly, like if I were to post at, 12 and then 12:15 the next day, I've still seen a penalty on both personal and company pages. So this idea that you need to be posting more. If you want to do that, then I would say find a different way to post. So the different way to post for me is things like newsletters, right? That would be a great space. If you posted yesterday and you really want to talk about this, like you're burning to talk about this new topic on your company page, that would be a great space, a great time to create an edition of your newsletter and send that out instead. And when I say newsletters, because I know sometimes, when we talk about even emails, it seems like, you remember back in the day where you have like MailChimp and you'd spend like 3 hours like making sure that everything looked perfect and branded. And it's like, you are putting your heart and soul into these like quarterly newsletters. I'm aging myself here. But I used to have all these, I had to make them all the time, these quarterly newsletters for a property management company that I worked at. And so a lot of us have like this PTSD with the word newsletter because it seems like this very like long process. But when I say newsletter, I'm just talking about if you're posting on LinkedIn, it can be a newsletter. If you're podcasting, it for sure should be a newsletter.
100%.
If you are creating content on YouTube, it for sure should be a newsletter. Like if you are creating content elsewhere than LinkedIn, you don't need to recreate things for LinkedIn, but you sure should be repurposing that content and posting it on there. So yes.
Well, I would say like the easiest way, sorry to interject, like the easiest way that I like to break it down is like, think of like the newsletter as like your base for all things email marketing. And then this content that you're creating is just what you fill in, right? It's how you fill in the gaps. So like you mentioned the podcast,
Love
right?
that.
Nowadays, you can take a podcast, you can get the transcript, you can take that transcript, run it through ChatGPT, boom, you have an email that you can send out within, a few minutes.
Yeah.
So same thing with videos, same thing with what we're doing here, right? We could take this 60 minutes of us talking and turn this into a blog post that then gets turned into an email that goes out, right? No more and no less.
100%.
So
yeah.
I would say like for anyone who's watching this, like think of the brand that you are building or the brand that you've already built. Think about your email newsletter. Don't think it so much as like the newsletter, because I think that's where a lot of folks get caught up, right?
It's
like newsletter just has this kind of old school, antiquated 1990s kind of like feel to it. Just think of like your emails, just no different than you say, I do TikTok or I
like
I
a direct post. Yeah.
Right. I'm going to send out an email. It's the same, right? It's just a different mechanism, a different channel, but you need to have a strategy. So, all right, let's go ahead and keep it moving. So you got mention your lists in posts, comments, and your profile. Speak to that.
So I don't know if I would necessarily do it in post. I think it's a great idea, like to kind of like softly introduce, like if it's something that you're interested in. I talk more about this every week. I deliver this. So I love when people give specifics when it comes to email lists. This is like my biggest thing is like, there are still some people that when it comes to emails, it's this long. And in my head, I'm like, I don't have time, So what I like are knowing how often it's going to come and how long it's going to be. So being specific there, definitely in the comments and your profile, it should be in your custom button. It should be on your cover image. That would be a great call to action to have there and in your featured section.
All right. Let's move on to the next slide because we have about 10 minutes. I first want to get to a question that's being asked here. So totally agree with the mindset around the newsletter. How often should we send newsletters? How do you balance providing multiple emails with not spamming them? So I'll take this one, Michaela. I would say, first of all, great question. In terms of how often you should send, look, it depends on your audience, right? So and it depends on what type of content. I get newsletters, I get emails from brands every day that seems like it's just like the same content being repurposed over and over. So I would say if you have a lot of content that you're already sharing on social and it can bring some sort of value, whether it's education, whether it's inspiration, motivation, entertainment of some kind, then you could potentially do it every day. I would say like at a very minimum, think about doing a weekly roundup, weekly digest, right? We do this here with Get Response. We send out like a weekly roundup of, news happening in the email industry, product updates, things like that. So I think it obviously depends on on the type of company that you work for, and then your audience. But I'd say weekly feels very safe. If you want to get edgy and get a little crazy, do daily, provide that you have enough content. I was speaking with a real estate agent last week that told me that she sends out a monthly newsletter and she was thinking about scaling back. I was like, look, like you got to scale forward. Like forget scaling back. You have to send more emails if you're in real estate. Like once a month seems very light and very conservative. And I'd say, how do you balance multiple emails without spamming? That's where segmentation comes in. So if you're segmenting your audiences out, send emails like to a certain group, right? If you're going to send it with more frequency, the people that are really engaged, the people that are constantly opening, you don't want to necessarily make the ones that aren't as engaged feel like they're being spammed. So I think that's where segmentation comes in. Really good question from Carly. Thank you. And then we've got, I'm the founder of a sensitive skincare product brand. My challenge has been my personal branding because I don't like sharing much about my personal life on social. I've struggled to reach on social media with my company pages though. Do you recommend entrepreneurs with product brands creating a personal brand on LinkedIn and Instagram? What would you emphasize? Michaela, I feel like this is right up your alley. I feel like this is like straight out of your book.
Yeah, I mean, I do both. I have my company page. I can't remember what I'm at on my company page. I think 17,000 followers. So, I think it's 100% possible. I'm a one-woman show. So I always think like, yeah, you can create a company page. Now visibility is down. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's really, really hard to get reach on company pages. Even working with GetResponse, I love to do campaigns with them where they will sponsor a newsletter of mine rather than a post because we can't rely on the algorithm, but newsletters are fantastic for that. So I think that you absolutely can do a company page. I would set it up. I wouldn't necessarily go and be like, okay, I need to have a content strategy and be posting daily like Carlos is saying or anything like that. But setting it up so that you look like a legitimate business is important and you can optimize that and it's still going to work for you. And then I would personally start with a personal profile and build it from there. Right now, I'm actually only focusing on, it's like the first time I've done this, but I'm only focusing on my personal, even though I have a big company page, because I just like having these one-on-one conversations and it makes more sense for me from a business perspective for right now in this moment. So I would start there and then grow as you go. Like there's no reason to kind of create all these spaces and then try to keep up with everything. I would say start with one thing, get really good at it, get real like your message pinned down before you start expanding.
So look, we've got about 5 minutes. Any questions that you have for Michaela or myself, whether it's email or social or both, please get those into the chat. I'm going to go through this slide, share with you an offer from GetResponse, and then we'll bring it home with Michaela. So you see here on the screen, turning your followers into email subscribers. If you've been sitting on the sidelines with email marketing, please consider this your wake-up call to get in the game. It is not hard. It's a lot easier than you think. You just need to have the right systems in place to make it happen. And the easiest way to do it is start a newsletter. Start a newsletter that appeals to your industry. And in order to grow your subscriber base, think about adding a lead magnet, right? So in my case, I'm a social media marketer, by trade. You could say a lead magnet for me would be like 5 ways to crush it with email marketing, with social media marketing in 2025. Click here, opt in to get a free ebook, right? That would be a lead magnet that then I would feature on LinkedIn. And I do want to point out, LinkedIn does have clickable buttons like on Michaela's profile. You can book an appointment with her. On mine, you can look at my services page. You can also have a link to your newsletter, right? So it's easier than you think. As you're posting on LinkedIn, that very critical piece of real estate comes up. And that is that CTA button already built into your LinkedIn post. You can use different hooks like comment to get. So you have a post and you want to drive people to that lead magnet. You get them to comment, you follow up either in the post, which then creates more engagement, or you can DM them directly. Think about repurposing your viral posts into gated downloads. So like this is more so for the creator community. I've met a lot of TikTokers in the last year that aren't using email marketing. As crazy as it sounds, how are you going to be on TikTok and like your whole business revolve around TikTok, but you're not using email marketing? So with the TikTokers, I let them know, or Instagrammers, like creators that make kind of YouTubers, take that viral content that you have and repurpose it in your email newsletter, or do like a paid newsletter, i.e. the VIP section with that premium content. You see the next tip here on the screen, run email only offers teased via posts. or LinkedIn Live. So think about going on your LinkedIn, going on your social media, you tease an offer, or you give people a reason to opt in, such as like, hey, I'm going to give you a 1 hour strategy or coaching call or group call. Here's where you go to sign up. And when people sign up, you're capturing their emails. And then GetResponse makes it really easy for you to create landing pages. So you can create landing pages which operate like standalone websites. You can drop those into your LinkedIn. So as you're posting content, now you have a destination to drive people back to opt in. Scott, if we can hop around the slide 24, which is the QR code with the GetResponse offer. If you've been sticking around for all 3 of these sessions and you haven't signed up for GetResponse, what I want you to do is I want you to pull out your phone, scan that QR code, and you're going to get 30 days of GetResponse for free. You're going to be able to send unlimited emails for the next 30 days to up to 500 contacts. So once again, if you've been sitting on the sidelines, let this be your wake-up call. Get in the game today. Sign up for GetResponse. If you have any questions about how GetResponse works, feel free to hit me up directly on LinkedIn. You can find me, Carlos Gill. And then Michaela, we're going to bring it home with you on the next slide here. First of all, I want to say thank you once again for being a great collaborator. It's always a pleasure to do this with you. An hour is truly never enough.
No.
But let's bring it home with you. We've got a couple minutes. Do you have any closing thoughts that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is, we talk about email marketing kind of being slept on. I think LinkedIn as well. I think that I hope that we touched on some of the process of using LinkedIn as top of the funnel, your handshake before that next step. It is such an amazing and free way to build your community and hopefully turn them into email subscribers, clients. I mean, I certainly have for myself, so it is possible. If you want to learn more about what I do, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm always hanging out there. You can also follow the LinkedIn Lowdown. You can follow my newsletter, Love and Copy, if you want to learn more about me personally. You can also find my book wherever books are sold. It was just released on February 14th. It's called No Fear Networking, a guide to building connections for the socially anxious professional. And I hope that you guys, I want to see everybody building on LinkedIn and growing those email lists.
Awesome. Well, Michaela, thank you so much for your time today. And I just want to give a shout out once again to Marketer Hire. You guys are amazing. I appreciate the partnership with you, Scott, and with Marketer Hire. Hopefully we get an opportunity to run this back again.
Of course, the feeling's mutual. Thanks for joining for this whole series. If anyone has missed the first couple sessions, we'll follow up with those recordings as well as today's. And Michaela, thanks for joining, sharing your expertise.
My pleasure.
Yeah, awesome. And thanks for everyone for tuning in. I just put a couple links in the chat. Feel free to follow any of us on LinkedIn. We'll follow up with those resources as well as any other resources, but reach out on marketerhire.com or getresponse.com and we'll follow up with you.
Bye. Love and coffee.
Thanks, everyone.